Is DSO relevant? What are the most effective measures? Overdues, provisions? Rebates, is there an easier way? How to measure productivity? Ladies and gentlemen, for the following panel on operational benchmarking, please welcome CEO at Kupeg, Michal Vesely, Accounts Receivable Manager at Dixons Carphone, Alfred, Jealouse, and Credit and Collections Manager at Unisys, Judit Benard Morva.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The idea of this session is to try a panel discussion, which means that we will try to throw and open some of interesting questions, and we hope for interaction from your side, a question from your side, and some joint discussion on difficult topics you all are facing. Maybe before we start, a very short introduction on the team which is sitting here in the chairs. I'm working for Kupeg, which is a credit insurance company. You probably know all the details because you visited our stall in outside. I personally am involved in credit insurance business for last 15 years. I was involved in debt collection, claims management, later on risk underwriting, and then I finished in finance and ultimately in general management. So that's my story, and that's my passion and relation with the management of cash, management of receivables. And honestly, I know that all the people who started in this type of business, they remained almost forever. So that's my story. I will probably ask Judit to tell us a few words about herself so that you know the background of us.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I work for Unisys. Unisys is a major provider of mission critical IT services. I'm leading the credit and collections department in the Budapest-based SSC. So I have a dual role. I have 7 people who do classic collections, and we are also very much involved in cash forecasting. And I personally am the credit manager for 11 countries in Europe. So I've been with Unisys since 11 years, since 8 years. And previous I worked for other major companies like IBM and GE, also in the credit and collections or other finance areas. So over to you, Alfred.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm the Accounts Receivable Manager in Dixons Carphone. People from the UK, I'm sure, know us from our stores such as Currys and PC World. But we also have presence in the Nordics with stores such as El Giganten and Egg Shop. And then we used to be owners of, in this region, of shops such as Electro World, but that's now part of the business that was sold off. Me personally, I've worked in Dixons Carphone for 18 months, but I've been working in collections, credit, cash, shared services and transitions for the last 12 years, but always based in Brno.
Okay, thank you. I will try to jump into the topic. In the presentation we heard just a few moments ago, the topic of KPIs and benchmarking was very linked together. Our idea was to have a look on benchmarking from a slightly broader picture and to make it rather easy or to set ourselves on the same baseline. We would like to ask you a question. What actually is benchmarking according to your opinion? Because it might seem as a very simple question. On the other hand, the answers are not so easy. If you could push one of these or select one of these 4 options, how do you see it? I'm really curious what will be the outcome, because maybe one of the options seems obvious, but the others are not so easy. Okay, that's the textbook answer. That's excellent. My personal view is that actually the point 3 and 4 have some appeal as well. It really depends from which viewpoint you attack benchmarking. If you have a look on the strategy of the company as a whole, well, when you set up the strategy, when you set up your future competitive advantage, you certainly want to know how you are standing, where are your competitors, and the benchmark, the KPI or some category helps you to drive you for the future. That's what I believe is also very valid comment. What do you think, Judit?
I agree with you. I would also like to make a point here that I think benchmarking is also important within the company, to be able to know where you are, where you started from, where you're heading to. Are you on the right track? Are you progressing well compared to what you want to achieve? So I think that's probably also just as important as comparing yourself to other companies. I think benchmarking to people in your industry or people doing similar things, it's not that easy, because there are plenty of factors that you need to take into consideration. And for example, Unisys, we have a very small client base. So when we want to benchmark to somebody who has, let's say, 2 million customers at the same time, it's just not going to work, because the approach that we're taking is completely different. Our customers are public sector, government, Fortune 500. Obviously, we're going to take a different view than somebody who sells to whoever walks in and buys something small. So I think while trying to see what the others do on the market, it's very, very important to see what we're doing and where we want to be compared to what we're doing right now, and advance that and improve that.
Thank you. Maybe Alfred, you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say that based on what Tom was saying before, that the benchmarking that in the various shared service centres that I've worked in, I think it evolves over time and based on the maturity of the centre that you're working in. So when a centre is very new, the benchmarks that you would operate against, I think, are much lower down on the maturity scale, and as you progress and move to that to those different focuses, then the benchmarks have to adjust accordingly.
Absolutely. I was just reminding the discussions we had yesterday. There was multiple sessions, multiple presentations which were dealing with people management and benchmarks. That's something probably we can also use to manage people. People need to get a constant feedback how they are doing, whether they are performing well or not so well. And in that situation, of course, they need to have the KPI according to which they can be measured. Nevertheless, another topic we were thinking when we were getting ready for this discussion, and we were thinking what might trigger some questions from your side and what might, let's say, start some thoughts, is when we know what the benchmarking is, who is actually responsible for that? When there goes something wrong, and now we are talking in order to cash, when something goes wrong with the receivables benchmark, who is the one who is responsible to take action? Again, this may be very different for every company, but I would like to know, and we all would like to know, how do we stand in this group? Who is responsible for corrective actions? Who bears the ultimate responsibility? I hope that we do not have all of these, which means that we have no topic. Wow! Sorry, I was really surprised. Never expected that. No, maybe Alfred, you have some thoughts about this? Is it the same for you?
Yeah, I think it's the same for us as well. So okay, thanks, Michal. Obviously, if the results in credit or collections deteriorate, we're ultimately responsible for improving them. But there needs to be that feedback, as was said yesterday, to the business, and that engagement with the operations or the sales department to help improve those results. I don't think the finance or credit department's not necessarily able to do or to correct those things by themselves. So yeah, it's all about the collaboration and the engagement with those other departments and not working in silos.
Yeah, I would be just interested, whoever pushed other department, what is the other department?
Maybe they pressed the wrong button.
But this is a panel discussion, so please feel free to speak up, ask us questions, okay?
Okay, so I assume that that was a mistake in the other department in the company. So it's just finance or people who are not benchmarking. Very short reflections from my side, from the viewpoint of credit insurance, which is in a let's say a little bit strange position, because credit management is on one side a service we are selling to our clients. On the other side, we have also internal credit management, which means who is the one in the credit insurance company who is responsible for corrections in case that our clients do not pay to us. Are these professionals, the risk underwriters, or is it topic for our finance team, or is it topic for our sales team? And the reason why I was so surprised is that in our case, I would say it's sales team. In our case, it's really the sales team, because if the buyer stops paying to a credit insurance company, it's usually somebody who is in a very, very bad shape. And when we see that our receivables are deteriorating, the measures we are taking are actually on the sales side. We have no chance to collect them faster because these are usually bust companies. But we tighten up our commercial underwriting guidelines and the processes when we are acquiring new clients. So for myself, I would put B as an answer. How would it be for Unisys?
It's rather A, because we can't really have an impact on what sales is doing, and we can ask them, to change the way they work, but that usually doesn't work. So it's rather us who try to change. But yeah, as I said, we have our internal metrics, so we measure ourselves compared to that, and if we feel that we're not on track, then we try to find out what we did wrong and what we need to change and do differently to achieve what we want to do. So it's with us.
Okay, yes, there's a question.
Hi, thank you. It's Stephanie from Alexion. Is it common practice to have the salespeople receive any incentives or something if they cooperate in collections?
Well, we have a small topic on that. There's a small question a little bit later on, but I believe it's the right moment to answer. Maybe Judit, if you want to say.
Unfortunately not. And that makes our life very, very difficult. We spent the past 8 years trying to push that through the senior management and trying to make them understand how much better it would be if they would, work for the same targets and work for the same goal. So now they do have certain figures in their targets, but it's not tied to their bonus. So whereas we feel that they do, pay a little bit more attention and they're a little bit more helpful, they don't really feel it on their skin, if something is going wrong. So it's not perfect yet, and this is something that I would like to achieve. In a previous company where I worked for, that was a general habit, and there we had great support, really great support. So I think this could be something that could work very well, and that's something that I would like to achieve also.
Can I ask, what are the blockers in discussion with your senior management in this discussion? Because you said it's taken longer.
Well, my management is convinced that it's good, but they need to, discuss and convince the managers of the sales department that they view it the same way, because we can't set target for salespeople. It has to be sales senior management accepting the idea and implementing it within their organization, and that's why it's difficult.
I just make the point that in our company we run our individuals on a program called management by objectives, and because of the need to improve DSO, but not necessarily improve past due, which is a contradiction in terms, but it's a reality for the business I work in, because we manufacture construction equipment, so it's been through a turmoil the last 5 or 6 years. I got it built in eventually into the individual sales objectives, and that they have DSO targets. The great thing is, they say it's the easiest money on their bonus because we do all the work. Alright? But the point is it's in there. So they have to, at least once a year, twice a year, come back and see how we're doing on DSO and past due. And for that reason then there's an interest. Sometimes I wish I didn't do as much work because maybe they could do more for me, but once you get it in, it's really beneficial.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, so a lot of our sales in our business-to-business operation come from across the whole range of PC World stores. And it's very hard to drive store colleagues to be responsible for the collections or for the DSO, but we have some of our accounts are segmented to a central corporate team who take care of bigger accounts, and their manager does drive them on the results, their aging, overdue, not necessarily DSO. So it's much better with the larger accounts. But what we can do with the smaller accounts in the stores is that we, if we identify non-compliance in the invoice, so that the invoice has not been raised correctly, then we can actually charge back the stores, so it directly affects their profit and loss. So there's other ways to affect the sales to be interested to make that correct sale or that correct invoice.
Okay. Thank you. Alfred, you just mentioned multiple KPIs actually, and that's one of the topics. We are not going to compete with the sophisticated presentation we had a few moments ago. But again, it was mentioned that DSOs are the most predominant KPI which companies are monitoring. Alfred just mentioned them as well as on the first place. Where are we standing? What are the KPIs which this group is monitoring? Can you answer this question? Because again, is that going to be DSOs again? And this group is different. It's not just worked class. But it's also not DSO-centric. That's interesting. Maybe, Judit, what's your view on that? Are you surprised? Is it the same like in Unisys?
At Unisys, about 10 years ago, the management back then, they took a view and they said, we want to change the way we work, we want to change the way we measure ourselves. We moved away from DSO completely. We don't measure DSO in collections at all. So instead we also use aging. So aging is one of our main KPIs. The other one is what we call collection efficiency. Collection efficiency is basically we take a look at the total AR at the beginning of the months. We take a look at what proportion is going to fall due by the end of that month. And we say, okay, you need to collect, I don't know, 70% of that. And that's a metric. And I find these two very, very good because the people working for this team, they know what they work for. They don't have 6 different things. They only have 2 that they need to focus on. Collection efficiency is very clear. They know exactly what invoices they have at the beginning of the month. They know where they need to get to. And for the aging, we don't use aging buckets. We picked one and we say, okay, we're going to focus on over 60. That's it. We want to achieve a 20% reduction each quarter in our over 60. And I'm very happy to share the news with you that we did so well that last year we started looking at over 30 because over 60 is basically non-existing anymore. So I feel that the fact that we have a limited number of things that we need to consider when we work actually help us to do a better job.
Yeah, I would say also in Dixons we're focusing on aging rather than DSO as well. I think it's aging is obviously much easier to measure because we have the AR ledger and the data is available. I think DSO is made more complicated to measure because of you have to be able to get the sales data to be able to measure it, and I think that can maybe be more of a challenge to obtain.
Judit, I was thinking because you mentioned aging buckets, or just one bucket. Do you differentiate according to location where your buyers are located, or you just focus on this one? Because our experience is that each market behaves very differently. The habits in terms of credit terms are completely different. The way how the credit terms are being respected are very different, and also the success rate of the defaulted invoices are very different. And all of that is matching together, which means that in my viewpoint, to set up one KPI for the whole Europe or for the whole Central Europe is very challenging. What do you think on that?
It's the same for all countries in Europe. So we picked over 60 for all of them. It is true that certain countries, they have different habits, and some of them are more difficult, some of them are easier to achieve. But at the end of the day, this measurement is also done for Europe, as a sum, as a total. And when you look at it like that, it's very good. It shows very good results. So it's true that, for example, in Italy, we obviously have a higher over-60 than in Germany, let's say. But when you sum up all European countries, then you take a view of the European figure and how it evolves, quarter after quarter, it still works and it's still going down. So yeah, and just one more comment to DSO that I wanted to make is that we don't like DSO because DSO doesn't take payment terms into consideration, and in our profession, it's quite likely that we have companies who have 60 days, 90 days. Then already you have a high DSO and you can't really do anything about it, right? So that's why, that's partially why we don't like to use that.
Yes.
Can I just make a comment? I won't be controversial because I normally am, because I'm Irish, I love to be controversial. But I'm 8 years into a journey with Doosan. And I'm going to be very direct and tell you now, if you don't measure DSO, then you will be a manager for the rest of your life. And the reason why is very simple. As Tom was explaining, you have 3 levels. I wouldn't describe them exactly the same, but I have 3 levels in my mind of how the shared service develops. So it's cost-driven first, with a combination of efficiency. We get the service levels, which is stage 2, basically improving performance, which is on the aging. And here's the beauty about moving from manager to director, which I've done in this company, is level 3. I spoke to the executives and I said, what exactly do you want me to do now? And they said, I want you to improve DSO, because it's how I'm measured. It's how Korea measure us, it's how Wall Street measure public companies. And they said to me, what are you going to do to improve it? And I said, well, we give terms in different countries from, as you said, 60 to 120 days. I said, we want DSO as 60. So what I had to do was go before the invoice was created to make sure that we speeded up that process. And then I had to bring in working capital programs. And that's what I call business intelligence. So if you don't measure DSO, you're not talking the same language as the executives, who pretty much decide the future of your career. Because you can be a manager all your life and collect money and have past dues, but if you want to be something special and something next level, you have to go to level 3. So I never liked DSO, especially when I worked in the software industry, because you deferred revenue with all these things that went wrong. But that's how Wall Street measure us. And while we neglect the fact that's how we're measured, then we're not talking the same language and trying to develop and expand our careers as individuals and as, shared services or global process owners. Does anybody disagree with me? No?
Thank you. I do not disagree with you at all. We are using DSO as well as a measurement next to the aging. But I realize that we have so many different methodologies to calculate the DSO that going back to benchmarking, we need first to find out, we know our peers, but we would like to understand, are they using the same methodology? And this is my question maybe to you. What methodology are you using in your DSO calculation? And are they the same as your peers?
Can I just interrupt for a second? There is only one measurement. Okay.
Let's be very clear. There is only one measurement of DSO. And that's the measurement, and I'm not American, but I'm going to use the American Wall Street terminology, what they measure you on. It's very simple. Okay, we all have other measurements, particularly when you move from country credit collections teams to shared services. They all have different ways of doing it. Why? Ask yourself the question why. To make themselves look better. Okay, but the reality is one calculation exists out there. I don't know if Tom will 100% agree with me, but I believe there is. That's on Wall Street. That's how you're measured. If you're a public company, they do it all exactly the same. And the reason why we don't like to do it sometimes is because it reflects something that we don't like. We're 99% current, but our DSO is 95 days. That's not good, is it? No, because the company wants 60 days. So what does that tell you? There's an underlying problem somewhere in the cycle. Probably we give out too long terms. Maybe someone's very clever with the way they calculate it. We all know that experience. So you have to stand up and you have to say to yourself, the reality is you're measured in one number. If you want to expand in your career, while we're all 100% current, we have no job. Okay?
I was just going to add to that then, that basically you're saying also that if that drive is coming from the executives, then that's where that engagement with sales can come, that they actually, when setting up accounts, give the correct terms rather than giving extended payment terms.
Remember, you're talking about executives, okay? Not talking about finance people. Once you get past the finance person, then you're to the power decision makers, okay? I'm not saying anything against finance people. I love them. I wish I was one. Not really. I consider myself completely different than them. I consider myself commercial. So when you get to the executive, that's the point you want to understand, what he wants you to do.
What he wants you to do is improve working capital. I mean, let's be bluntly honest, we've all been through difficult situations. But when you talk about IT industry versus construction versus other industries, those companies that don't have the cash in the bank are the ones that need to really improve their working capital, and that's where you bring value. And that's where you bring true value.
Yeah, the senior management at Unisys also looks at DSO, but when it comes to the actual people who work and who deliver the results, you need to translate that to them somehow. They don't understand DSO. They do understand, yeah, you go and collect those that I do. They understand focus on the over 60 bucket. So, from my point of view, to make my team successful and thus help, the company generate free cash flow, I need to translate it to them, and I find that these two have proven to be good measurements for us. So I think it was about 5-6 years ago, our collection efficiency was 65%, and due to this approach, we are targeting 70% for this year. It has improved about 1% year on year, and I think that's very good.
Okay, maybe I should clarify. What I meant was, if you as an individual want to increase the profile of your team, you have to speak executives' language. I still measure my people on past due and collector efficiency and everything else, and it's in their objectives. But the senior managers of my team and myself have the same objective as our CEO. Okay, and working capital. That's what I meant in terms of, yes, you have to have all these other KPIs, but if you want to expand and be more value to the business, you need to speak their language and you need to deliver on what they want. They don't want to know the past dues. They really don't. That's your problem. Their problem, our problem, is improving the working capital cycle, which is also AP and inventory driven, as we know. But we have one piece of that which you can manage.
Okay, thank you.
I guess maybe we can conclude that here we can see the nice differentiation between the KPIs of the company as a whole and the KPIs for individuals, KPIs we use to manage people, to deliver actually the ultimate result of the whole company. But for the daily business, the people are being focused on something slightly different. Okay, we are basically by that we are moving to the question of the productivity measurement, and to a question which was already placed, but it was just one shot. Here we would like to ask you all whether you managed to reach the nirvana and the goal for all that the sales team is involved in a collection in a way, or is feeling responsible for the quality of cash inflow. Okay, it does not look so bad. It doesn't look so bad at all. What do you think?
Well, as I already said, we don't have that, and it's something that I would really like to achieve, to include in their in their bonus program. I think it would help us a lot to do even better than what we do right now. How is it with you?
Yeah, I think I already described it based on the larger accounts, but where we have the involvement, but it's not affecting their remuneration. But no, it's not in place in Dixons Carphone, but definitely we would like to. Maybe if somebody who said yes, that it is part of it. Has somebody been successful in that, in making it a yes and turning a no to a yes? Would anybody like to speak on that? On the steps they went through to achieve that?
Just one more thing that I wanted to share with you. I think this question also comes back to the customer profiles that you have. Like for us in our business, because let's say we're in contact with major public sector clients. Sometimes the collector is not allowed to directly contact the customer because Unisys says we want one face to this client. We want only one person from Unisys to do all the contact. So that's for us typically is an account manager, so one of the salespeople. So for us, it would be vital and really crucial that that person, feels what we feel, and it's tied to our figures in a way. Probably in other sectors where the collectors are allowed to contact everyone and they do, all aspects of the job. Probably it's not that crucial, but for example, for us, it can make a real difference if the sales guy is also working for us and not just focusing on selling something else. And not even taking into consideration that they have not paid the previous 5 invoices either. Yeah.
Maybe following the, I would say, a successful outcome of this question, which means that there are people who are involved and remunerated according to the quality of bad debts in a company. How do you see it? Did it influence the ultimate results of the company? Do you see that your receivables benchmarks are improving actually in the, let's call it, the last 12 months? What are the current trends? It's, of course, a very selfish question from my side because we as a credit insurer are always very curious about the current payment situations in different countries. But I think it perfectly fits also into this discussion because we just saw that many companies managed to turn the non-involvement of the salespeople into their involvement. So let's hope that there was some impact on the real results. Could you share that with us? Okay, it's very optimistic. It just underlines the same answer or the same comment which Judit was making just a few moments ago. It just fits into the overall situation and the stories we are hearing all the time. Yesterday we heard the presentation from Sberbank with pretty optimistic outcomes. That's what we can see as a credit insurer, that the bad debts, the levels were falling sharply. Now they are stabilizing on a rather low level. Nevertheless, we are in the optimistic plateau when we expect that for another, let's say, maybe year or two, we will be pretty good in terms of payment terms and the quality of bad debts. I don't know how it's going in with Dixons now.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
The receivable benchmark levels.
Yeah, so our receivables are currently getting, they are getting better. I think there was a time where we were using old ERP systems. We didn't have reporting on receivables. We had mixtures of cash sales and credit sales, and now we have a really good split, and we can actually report up to management about what's actually happening with our receivables, and we are on a positive trend, clearing up old debt, writing off debt where it should be written off, and we also, with our move from we moved from a system called Lawson into SAP, and implemented a more efficient dunning process. So now, yeah, it's definitely a positive trend.
Well, for us, it's mixed because it is improving on the area that we have, but at the same time, we have less and less to collect on. So, yeah, I would say, you know, like in French, comme ci, comme ça. So.
Okay, thank you. Talking about, yes, there was a question.
Just a question for Alfred. Alfred, I understand that you're moving into Ireland on the mobile side. I'm not sure if you'll be responsible for that or not. How do you think that will impact upon your receivables benchmarking, and what have you put in place to cater for that?
So the receivables side that I'm responsible for is our business-to-business operation, BCWL business. So I don't think that it's part of this Irish mobiles market, or I'm certainly not involved with it. Maybe it's part of the Carphone warehouse side of the business. So I'm not aware. I'm sorry. I did want to mention one thing about that we've all been just talking about order to cash KPIs, and Tom mentioned one about where shared service centres or global business centres, they are world-class organisations should be achieving 11% efficiency every year. So in our centre, we don't have 11% efficiency every year as the target. We have 6%. So this means that every year we should be either being able to reduce our cost by 6% or absorb new work, which amounts to the FT equivalent of 6%. So for me, I've always found this quite a challenging target, 6%. But to be a world-class organisation, we should be hitting 11%. So quite often that can be the balance between quality and efficiency, and actually, if that's driven by automation, to get that investment into that automation, I think is a big challenge as well. Yeah. Do you have something similar in Unisys?
You mean automation?
About efficiency, that you should be more efficient year on year in terms of.
Yes, yeah, that's part of the target, that we need to achieve a year-on-year improvement. And on those two KPIs that I mentioned, it's there. So that's an absolute success for the past 5-6 years. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I guess that with the continuous improvement, we are kind of moving to the actual ability to measure the KPIs and to measure and to benchmark ourselves against the moving target, against the continuous improvement. When we are getting ready, when we are getting for the discussion, we are discussing also the availability of benchmarking data, and we realize that it's not so easy to get very sophisticated, very deep analysis for the businesses where we operate. That it's pretty challenging. We were thinking about the possibility that maybe the association, the ACCEE, could play a role in this quest to help its members to measure themselves against other members, to measure the progress what we are achieving, what we as members of the association are achieving, to measure ourselves among ourselves. For that, of course, we need to collect the data, and Mark should be kind of keen on playing with this data. But do you think there is any space that you could share some of your benchmarks, the outputs and their evolution with the association, fully anonymously, of course, for the sake of helping other members to benchmark themselves among each other? What do you think? So is that possible from your viewpoint, from the security reasons, etc., etc.?
It's certainly something that we will do. You know, it's a good idea, and we'll put out a survey, and we can discuss what should we measure, and then
My understanding is that that's something would be very welcome by a lot of the members, if they are willing to share the data, of course. That's something we'll learn in a second.
Happy to put it out very soon. For sure.
If I may just go back to the previous answer, Alfred, you've given. When you say 6% of improvement, I assume that is a 6% cost savings that you're trying to drive. How do you deal with that, including a business growth that might occur? And where in my situation with Amazon, we've got a rapid business growth, how would you kind of incorporate that?
So, in terms of if we were taking on new work, this is not considered as part of an efficiency. So, for instance, we start the year with a benchmark with the cost of our department, and so over that 12 months, we've got to make annualized savings of 6%. And so, if we find that we automate a process and we don't need one person, then we don't replace that person, and then we can either stop charging for that person, or we can advertise that we've got space available, and the budget holder, which would be in the UK in this case, can move additional work to our teams. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. So basically no projected forecasting of business growth is incorporated with your cost savings?
No, it's purely based on the headcount or the department the people that we have and the processes that we have.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe if I can ask you to answer the question, or maybe we receive the results in the meantime. Okay, great, thank you.
Just before we sort of break for coffee and what have you, can I make an appeal to every single one of you in this room? Because all of you represent bigger boys, larger organisations when it comes to actually getting collections in. One of the things I do is to actually support a non-governmental organisation for young people. And over the years, I've also done a lot of work with small and medium-sized enterprises. You guys and ladies, you've got real clout in terms of debt collection. But whenever a small and medium-sized organisation organises a conference such as this, some organisations, unfortunately, even if your terms of contract are 30 days credit, basically will say, you want to do business with us? 90 days before we will pay. The worst payers of the lot tend to be government departments, etc., and governmental organisations. Now, every single person here has got a member of the European Parliament or a local representative. Could I please ask all of you to make the message quite clear to them that, of course, cash is the lifeblood of business, and if small and medium-sized enterprise businesses haven't got that cash in their pockets, they can't trade. The fact they can't trade is driving them out of business. It's driving organisations out of business as well. And so, for goodness sake, why is it that the governments and the MEPs, etc., will not put in place the legislation, which they've talked about many, many times, to actually impose restrictions on the periods of credit that organisations take, and to stop them taking advantage of their own clout in terms of credit available, because it's driving business downwards. Sorry, but of course the point is that as individuals we can make that representation, so it's well worth doing.
Thank you. I will quickly jump, because in the meantime we received multiple questions from the audience, or shortly before the panel discussion. So I will just repeat and ask my colleagues here in the panel. The first question, which came from Anna Ramenda from Hitachi, concerns late payment charges. Anna is asking whether what is your experience? How this strategy is used in the market, and whether you consider it as efficient measure?
As I said, we work with Fortune 500 and public sector governmental clients, and we don't really use them. It's really the last thing that we do. If it's really going bad, we try everything else that we can before, because we feel that if we have to go down that route, that means there's something really wrong, and probably the collection team did not do a good job. So basically, we think that the person doing collections has to be able to establish a relationship, which will always, work win-win. So we solve their problems, they pay us in return, and as long as that relationship works, we don't need to use these things like late payment fees.
In BC World Business, we are using it, but only when we've sent debt to our legal team. So in our regular credit and collection cycle, no, we don't use it. Once it passed to legal, they use a different system, and it's a completely different team, and they do charge.
Just the overall experience from the market, what we can see from our clients, which are credit insured. Late payment charges are almost always mentioned in contracts, but are almost never collected. That's basically it. It's just a safety measure in terms of bankruptcy or court proceedings. That if the client really reaches this ultimate stage, then he will really attack with all the possible means and will try to collect as much money as possible. But it's really the measure of last resort. Nobody's really using it in a daily life.
Sorry, I disagree with you. I do. And it's the best thing I've ever done. In
all the years I've been in the business, the best thing I've ever done was turning it on, because we had one objective: to improve past due, not to make money. There was a difference. Okay, a lot of people say, oh, we need to recover the cost of, having this working capital outstanding. So we turned it on, and it was amazingly interesting to see the change in past dues. But also we have an invoice for 2,000, 3,000 euros, 4,000, and some dealers' customers a month, and we use it as leverage. We'll say we'll credit that, but you got to pay on time going forward. And I also have a great KPI. I have invoiced something like 400,000 euros in France, and I have set a world record because I've never collected 1 cent of this. The French don't like late payment charges. All the other countries are okay. Even the Italians like it.
Okay, that's an optimistic outcome. Let's hope others will be as well as successful as you are. And I think for most of the businesses it's a very tough challenge. Basically, do not dare to ask for the late payment charges. That's the answer we often hear. The other question we just received is coming from Tomáš Kremla from Shell. He's asking when we can expect reaching a point of touchless process of credit assessment and no interaction with credit analyst needed anymore. Do you want to comment on that?
Like all processes, I think this is also something that you can automate up to a certain level. But at the end of the day, whatever is there, it's there are people behind it. The company that you're analyzing, it's people who run the company. It's their decisions which run the company. So you can never factor the human factor out of the whole equation. So whereas you can analyze the figures and you can say that this is this and this is that. At the end of the day, as a human being, you need to know that there are other human beings sitting there, and if they decide on A instead of B, which they can do because they are human, that might have a different result. So I think it's very important. That's why I personally like to keep credit and collections together, for example, in one department, because they can work together. You get the analysis, then you move over to the collector. You say, what is your experience? What do you feel on the customers? How do you react? If you ask them for something, are they supportive? Are they not? And that plays a great deal, I think, in an analysis also, not just the figures themselves.
So in PC World Business, we are selling consumer electronics to businesses. So, for instance, in if someone was buying aggregate, as was from the presentation yesterday, there's not much demand for me to go and, as a man off the street, to go and try and get a credit limit from you and get a couple of tons of aggregate that I can go and, I don't know, used for well, I don't even know what I would use aggregate for, but if I could get an iPad or an iMac or something on credit terms, then there's an option to resell that. And basically what I'm trying to say is that we have large amounts of, or not large amounts, but there are people who attempt fraud to get consumer electronics. So the opportunity to have a fully automated, non-touch credit vetting process, I think, is quite dangerous depending on the market. So I think it wouldn't be possible, because sometimes with a fraud suspicion, it's just a feeling, it's a suspicion, and unless you can define what it is that's creating that suspicion, you can't automate it.
I fully agree. I believe that the fraud part is the most critical one. For in brackets, normal businesses, probably yes. The difficulty are the soft factors, and of course, if there are large advances in artificial intelligence and stuff like that, then it can probably replace the human being. But we really need to be very cautious about the different fraud schemes and different feelings which only humans are, for the time being, able to have. We know that more than 10% of claims we handle are frauds. These are things which are not visible in financial statements. These are not things which are hard facts. These are pure frauds. These are falsified data. And that's something we are not able to detect by the machine for the time being. Okay, I received multiple signals that we are running way over time, so I propose that we close for now. Please feel free to come over and discuss during the coffee break. Sorry for those whom we were not able to answer, because there is at least one question we had on here on the agenda, but we are not able to process it. I just hand over the word to Mark.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody. Break time now. We're returning in 30 minutes, but remember, this is the last chance to get the stickers on your cards for the draw.